The chandeliers sparkled above the dance floor as my sister Kelly waltzed with her new husband. I sat at our assigned table in the corner, watching my 5-year-old son Ethan play with his dessert fork. Everyone else was celebrating, but something about the evening felt off. I smoothed Ethan's hair as he fidgeted with his little ring-bearer bow tie. Suddenly, his small hand gripped my wrist with surprising strength. His blue eyes wide with fear, he whispered, "Mom, let's go home, right now." When I asked what was wrong, he trembled and said, "You didn't look under the table, did you?" I slowly bent down to peek underneath and froze. I grabbed his hand and silently stood up. Kelly and I had always been different. Growing up, she was the golden child, 3 years my senior valedictorian, homecoming queen, and eventually, Cornell graduate. I was the family disappointment, the one who got pregnant at 19 and dropped out of community college. Our parents never let me forget how I had thrown away my potential, while Kelly made them proud. When Ethan was born, I knew I had to create a stable life for us. I worked 2 jobs while finishing my associate's degree in accounting. We lived in a modest 1-bedroom apartment, and I saved every extra penny for Ethan's future. My parents helped occasionally with childcare, but their assistance always came with lectures about responsibility and reminders of how differently Kelly had chosen to live her life. Kelly rarely visited when she moved back to town after college. She was too busy climbing the corporate ladder at her marketing firm, attending galas, and dating eligible bachelors from good families. When she did see Ethan, she treated him like a slightly interesting museum exhibit, keeping her designer clothes safely beyond the reach of his sticky fingers. "He seems energetic," she would say with the polite distance of someone commenting on a stranger's pet. "Have you had him tested for ADHD?" Despite everything, I wanted Ethan to know his family. I brought him to mandatory holiday gatherings where my parents showered Kelly with praise, while asking me when I planned to get back on track with my life, as though raising a wonderful little boy was somehow off track. Last Thanksgiving, Kelly arrived with Andrew Pierce, a successful investment banker with perfect teeth and a family lineage he could trace back to the Mayflower. My parents were instantly charmed. "Andrew just closed a 7-figure deal with Japanese investors," my father announced proudly, as though Andrew were his own son. "And he sits on the board of 3 different charities," my mother added, squeezing Kelly's hand. "You two are just perfect together." I watched them fawn over him, while I washed dishes alone in the kitchen. Ethan ran in, excited to show me the paper turkey he had colored. "It's beautiful, buddy," I said, kneeling to admire his artwork. "Why don't you show Grandma and Grandpa?" "They're busy talking to Aunt Kelly's friend," he said with a child's honest assessment. They said not to interrupt. 3 months later, Kelly called to announce her engagement. Andrew had proposed in Paris with a diamond the size of a small country's GDP. The wedding planning began immediately, with my mother and Kelly turning it into the social event of the season. I was not asked to be a bridesmaid. Kelly filled those positions with her college sorority sisters and work colleagues. When I asked if she wanted me to help with anything, she hesitated before saying, "Actually, we were hoping Ethan could be the ring bearer. Kids that age are always cute in tuxedos." It was the first time she had ever specifically requested Ethan's presence at anything. Despite my misgivings, I agreed, mostly because Ethan was thrilled at the prospect of having a special job. As the wedding approached, I began to notice odd things about Andrew. During the rehearsal dinner, I overheard him on his phone in the restaurant hallway. "Make sure everything goes exactly as planned," he said in a low voice. "Nobody can find out, especially not before the ceremony. There's too much riding on this." When he saw me, he quickly ended the call and flashed that perfect smile. "Joanne, just handling some last-minute business. You know how it is, can't even take a day off for my own rehearsal dinner." I smiled back and pretended I hadn't heard anything suspicious. After all, who was I to question Kelly's perfect fiancé? Maybe it was just wedding jitters or a work emergency. Besides, with my track record of bad decisions, my family would never believe me if I raised concerns. That night in our hotel room, as I helped Ethan practice walking slowly down an imaginary aisle, I pushed away the nagging feeling that something about this wedding wasn't right. Kelly had found her fairy tale ending. Who was I to think otherwise just because mine had never materialized? The morning of the wedding dawned bright and clear. Kelly had booked the entire top floor of the Grayson Hotel, the most exclusive venue in the city. Ethan and I arrived early as requested, navigating through a maze of wedding coordinators, florists, and catering staff. "You're the sister?" A harried woman with a clipboard asked, eyeing my department store dress. "Kelly's in the Magnolia Suite. The ring bearer needs to be in the Willow Room with the coordinator in 20 minutes." I found Kelly surrounded by her bridesmaids, all of them wrapped in matching silk robes with glasses of champagne in hand. A makeup artist was applying false eyelashes while a hairstylist arranged her perfect blonde curls. "Oh good, you're here," Kelly said without looking at me. "Mom was worried you'd be late. Can you make sure Ethan doesn't get anything on his tuxedo before the ceremony? The photographer wants pictures of the wedding party at 11. We'll be careful," I promised. "You look beautiful, Kelly." She finally glanced at me, her expression softening slightly. "Thanks. There's coffee and pastries in the corner if you want some." It was as close to warmth as Kelly got these days. The ceremony preparations passed in a blur of instructions and photographs where Ethan and I were positioned at the edges, easily cropped out if desired. I noticed Andrew's groomsmen watching me with an odd intensity, particularly his best man Ryan, a sharp-featured man with calculating eyes who kept checking his phone. When it was finally time for the ceremony, Ethan performed his role flawlessly. He walked carefully down the aisle, the ring pillow held steady in his small hands. I blinked back unexpected tears, proud of his composure in front of 300 strangers. "He did great," my mother whispered as Ethan took his seat beside me. Her tone carried surprise, as though she had expected him to fail. The reception was held in the hotel's grand ballroom, transformed by thousands of white orchids and crystal decorations. Ethan and I were seated at table 19, the farthest from the bridal party, with distant relatives who hadn't seen me since I was a child. "So you're Joanne," said an elderly woman whose name I couldn't recall. "Your mother tells me you're working in an office now?" "I'm an accounts payable specialist at Midwest Healthcare," I said, helping Ethan cut his chicken. "I've been there 3 years." "How?" "Stable," she replied, clearly searching for something positive to say about a job she found underwhelming. As dinner progressed, Ethan grew restless. I let him walk around our table, keeping a close eye on him as he charmed the catering staff into giving him extra chocolate mousse. "Be right back, Mom," he said after finishing his second dessert. "I'm going to look at the big cake again." "Stay where I can see you," I called after him, watching as he carefully navigated between tables toward the massive wedding cake display. I was distracted by the sight of Andrew and Ryan in what appeared to be a tense conversation near the bar. Ryan kept gesturing toward the exit, while Andrew maintained his perfect smile, though I could see tension in his jaw even from across the room. When I looked back toward the cake, Ethan was nowhere in sight. I stood up, scanning the crowded reception. Panic rose in my chest as seconds stretched into minutes with no sign of my son. "Ethan?" I called, moving between tables. "Ethan!" I was about to alert security when I spotted him emerging from behind a decorative pillar near the gift table. His face looked pale, his usual exuberance replaced by something I had never seen before: fear. "Ethan, where were you?" I knelt in front of him, checking him for signs of injury. "You scared me." He didn't answer, just grabbed my hand and held it tightly. For the rest of the evening, he refused to leave my side, not even to visit the chocolate fountain he had been excited about all day. "What's wrong, buddy?" I asked as we returned to our table. "Did something happen?" He shook his head, but his eyes kept darting toward Ryan, who I now noticed was making subtle hand signals to someone on the other side of the room. I followed his gaze and saw a man I didn't recognize nod in response. He wasn't dressed like a wedding guest. His suit was ill-fitting, and he wore sunglasses indoors. "Mom," Ethan whispered, tugging on my sleeve. "I don't like that man with Aunt Kelly's new husband." "Ryan? Did he say something to you?" Ethan shook his head again, but something had clearly frightened him. I made a mental note to ask him more once we were alone. The night progressed with speeches, dances, and traditions. Through it all, I noticed Ryan's eyes repeatedly drifting to our table with an intensity that made me uncomfortable. Whatever was happening, I was increasingly certain that this perfect wedding was hiding something far from perfect beneath its glittering surface. Mom, let's go home. Right now. Ethan's urgent whisper caught me off guard. We had been sitting quietly at our table while most guests were on the dance floor. The desperation in his voice sent a chill down my spine. What's wrong? I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. You didn't look under the table, did you? His small face was tight with fear, his voice trembling. Confused and concerned, I slowly bent down, lifting the floor-length tablecloth to peek underneath. What I saw made my blood run cold. A black gym bag, partially unzipped to reveal stacks of cash and clear packets of white powder. I froze, my mind racing to process what I was seeing. This couldn't be happening, not at my sister's wedding, not with my 5-year-old son beside me. I carefully straightened up, forcing my expression to remain neutral. It's okay, Ethan, I whispered, giving his hand a reassuring squeeze. I casually glanced around the room and noticed Ryan staring directly at us from across the ballroom, his phone pressed to his ear. Ethan, we're going to play a little game, I said softly. We need to walk very normally to the restroom. Don't look scared, okay? Pretend we're just going to wash our hands. He nodded, his small face serious. I stood up, taking his hand, and walked at a measured pace toward the hallway that led to the restrooms, fighting the urge to run. Once inside the women's restroom, I checked under the stalls to ensure we were alone. Ethan, how did you know about that bag? I saw the mean man put it there, he said. When I went to look at the cake, he didn't see me because I was behind the plant. He looked scary, Mom. Which man, sweetie? Aunt Kelly's husband's friend, the one who stands next to him in the pictures. He told someone on his phone that the package is in position and to make sure the right people take it home. My mind raced. Our table had been positioned in the far corner of the room, I now realized, in what appeared to be a blind spot from the security cameras I had noticed earlier. I pulled out my phone and called Sam, my friend from high school who had become a police officer. He answered on the third ring. Hey, Joanne, aren't you at your sister's wedding? Sam, I need your advice, I said quietly. This is going to sound crazy, but I just found what looks like drugs and a lot of cash hidden under our table at the reception. My son saw someone put it there. There was a pause before Sam's voice turned serious. Don't touch anything, and don't confront anyone. Where exactly are you? The Grayson Hotel, Grand Ballroom. We're hiding in the restroom right now. Okay, listen carefully. This could be dangerous. You need to get yourself and Ethan out of there casually, without raising suspicion. Don't take your purse or anything from your table. Just leave. I'll meet you outside in 15 minutes. Okay, I agreed, relief flooding through me at the thought of escape. But when Ethan and I exited the restroom and headed toward the side exit, I spotted Ryan standing there, his stance casual but his eyes alert. He nodded at me. Leaving so soon, Joanne? The night's just getting started. I forced a smile, just getting some air. Ethan's feeling a little overwhelmed by the crowd. You should stay, Ryan insisted. Kelly would be disappointed if her only sister left early. Besides, there's the bouquet toss coming up. Maybe this is your lucky night. The threat underneath his friendly words was unmistakable. We weren't going anywhere. You're right, I said, maintaining my fake smile. We'll head back in. As we turned toward the ballroom, my phone vibrated with a text message. I glanced down, expecting Sam, but instead saw Andrew's name on the screen. Meet me in the hotel library. Now, I need to explain. Come alone. My heart pounded against my ribs. How did Andrew even have my number? I had never given it to him. I looked around the crowded ballroom, suddenly seeing it with new eyes. Andrew's business associates weren't just scattered randomly among the guests, they were positioned near exits, their attention more focused on the crowd than the celebration. I noticed one of them speaking into his cufflink, his eyes scanning the room systematically. With growing horror, I realized this elaborate wedding might have been orchestrated for something far more sinister than marrying my sister. And somehow, Ethan and I had stumbled into the middle of it. Back inside the ballroom, I guided Ethan to a spot near my parents' table, hoping their presence might offer some protection. My father was deep in conversation with Andrew's father about golf courses, while my mother adjusted her already perfect makeup. Mom, I said, trying to keep the desperation from my voice. Could you watch Ethan for a few minutes? I need to use the restroom. My mother sighed as though I'd asked for a kidney. I suppose, though we're about to do the cake cutting, Kelly will want everyone present. I'll be quick, I promised, kneeling to meet Ethan's eyes. Stay with Grandma, okay? I'll be right back. His small hand clutched mine. Don't go, Mom. It's just for a minute, buddy. I need to send a quick message to Sam. I extracted myself from his grip and moved to a quiet corner where I could text Sam without being observed. Can't leave, being watched. Drugs and cash under table 19. Wedding seems to be cover for something bigger. His response was immediate. On my way with backup. 20 minutes. Keep yourself and safe. Don't confront anyone. I returned to find Kelly approaching our parents' table, her wedding gown shimmering under the chandelier lights. There you are, she said with a tight smile. Andrew's been asking where you disappeared to. Just freshening up, I lied. Beautiful reception, Kelly. Thanks. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Andrew wants to make sure you're enjoying yourself. He specifically asked me to check on you. The hairs on the back of my neck rose. Why would the groom be concerned about his wife's estranged sister during his own wedding reception? That's thoughtful of him, I said carefully. We're having a great time. Just then, the hotel manager approached the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for the interruption, but the hotel is temporarily on lockdown due to a security concern. Please remain in the ballroom. Hotel staff will be coming around with additional refreshments while we resolve the situation. Murmurs of confusion spread through the crowd. I watched Ryan immediately move to the main entrance, speaking urgently into his phone. 3 other men I now recognized as Andrew's friends positioned themselves at other exits. What's going on? My mother asked, clutching her pearls. Probably just a precaution, my father assured her. These fancy hotels take security very seriously. I knelt beside Ethan. Did you see anything else when the man put the bag under our table? He nodded, his eyes wide. He said someone would get in trouble for having it, that it would look like they brought it. I felt sick. Were we being set up? Had someone planned for us to unwittingly take that bag home, perhaps in the confusion of leaving? While everyone was distracted by the announcement, I slipped my phone out and discreetly took photos of Ryan and the other men guarding the exits. I then returned to our table, casually dropping my napkin to give myself an excuse to look under the tablecloth again. I quickly snapped photos of the bag and its contents without touching anything. As I straightened up, I noticed Kelly and Andrew in an intense conversation near the cake table. Even from a distance, I could tell they were arguing. Kelly's perfect bridal composure had slipped, her face flushed with what looked like anger or fear. Andrew gripped her wrist, smiling for anyone who might be watching while speaking through clenched teeth. I moved closer, pretending to admire a nearby flower arrangement. Why would you bring business to our wedding? Kelly hissed. You promised this would be separate from all that. Keep your voice down, Andrew replied, his smile never wavering. Everything's under control. No one will ever know. You said after we were married, you'd be done with this part of your work. And I will be, once this final transaction is complete. Now go powder your nose or something. You're drawing attention. Kelly turned away, nearly bumping into me. Her eyes widened in recognition, then narrowed with suspicion. Eavesdropping, Joanne? Always trying to find ways to ruin my special day? I was just getting some water, I lied. Is everything okay? Of course it is, she snapped. Go back to your table and keep an eye on your son. This isn't a playground. As she stormed off, I realized with sinking certainty that Kelly wasn't an innocent bystander. She knew something about whatever Andrew was involved in. Maybe not the full extent, but enough to be complicit. And if my perfect golden child sister was involved, who would believe me, a single mother who had always been the family disappointment when I accused her and her wealthy new husband of criminal activity? 2 hours into the lockdown, guests were growing restless. The hotel staff had distributed free champagne and appetizers, framing the delay as an extended celebration. Most people were too drunk or distracted to question why they couldn't leave. I returned to our table, where Ethan was drooping with exhaustion. I had been moving us around the reception, staying in public view while avoiding being cornered by Ryan or his associates. I needed to appear casual while figuring out an escape plan. "You look like you could use this," said a voice beside me. I turned to find one of Andrew's college friends holding out a glass of champagne. "Rough day for a single mom, huh?" I accepted the glass with a smile, pretending to sip while actually holding the liquid in my mouth before discreetly spitting it back when I pretended to dab my lips with a napkin. I needed to keep my wits about me. "Thanks," I said. "Long day for a 5-year-old too." "Let me get the little guy some juice," he offered, tousling Ethan's hair in a way that made my son shrink against me. When he left to find a server, I immediately dumped the champagne into a nearby plant. "Smart move," said a woman's voice. I turned to see one of the catering staff, her name tag reading Diane. She was collecting empty glasses from our table. I saw him slip something into that before bringing it over. My blood ran cold. "Are you sure?" She nodded discreetly. "I've worked enough corporate events to recognize when something's not right. Your table's been a hot spot of interest all night." I glanced around, noticing Ryan's growing agitation as he checked his watch repeatedly. He had visited our table 3 times during the lockdown, ostensibly to check if we needed anything, but his eyes had darted to the space under the table each time. "I need to get my son out of here," I whispered to Diane. "Is there a staff exit?" She hesitated, then nodded. "Through the kitchen. I finish my shift in 20 minutes. Meet me by the dessert station if you're serious." While waiting, I pretended to get increasingly drunk, slurring my words slightly when Ryan came by again. "Some wedding, huh?" I giggled, swaying a little. "Kelly always does everything perfectly. Even the security threats are fancy." Ryan's smile didn't reach his eyes. "You should sit down, Joanne. You look like you've had enough excitement for one night." "We're having a great time," I insisted, putting an arm around Ethan's shoulders. "Aren't we, buddy?" Ethan, picking up on my act, nodded sleepily. "Well, stay put. I think they'll be letting people leave soon." Ryan's eyes flicked to the space under our table again before he moved away. Once he was out of earshot, I knelt to Ethan's level. "Sweetie, we're going to play another game soon. When I say it's time, we're going to go get more dessert, and then we might take a little adventure through the kitchen. Can you be super quiet and follow me exactly?" He nodded, his eyes serious. "Like spies?" "Exactly like spies," I confirmed. I waited until Ryan was distracted by a commotion at the main entrance before slipping away from our table. As we passed behind the gift display, I discreetly moved the bag from under our table to beneath a pile of presents, hoping to buy us more time if someone checked for it. At the dessert station, Diane was collecting empty platters. "Follow me," she murmured. "Act normal." We followed her through a service door into the bustling hotel kitchen. Cooks and dishwashers barely glanced at us as Diane led us toward a back exit. "This leads to the employee parking lot," she explained. "There's no security camera on this door. It's been broken for weeks, and management is too cheap to fix it." "Thank you," I said, grasping her hand. "I don't know why you're helping us, but I'm grateful." "I have a son too," she said simply. "And I recognize the fear in your eyes. It's the same look I had when I left my ex. Whatever you're running from, I hope you get away." As we pushed through the exit door, the cool night air hit my face. Freedom was just across the parking lot when my phone rang. Andrew's name flashed on the screen. "Where are you?" he demanded when I answered. "We're about to cut the cake." Ethan wasn't feeling well, I improvised. "Too much excitement. We're in the restroom." "Stay there," Andrew ordered. "Ryan is coming to help." The line went dead. I turned to Diane. "Is there a taxi stand or something nearby?" 3 blocks east, she said. "But you'd be visible from the street." My phone pinged with a text from Sam. "Outside hotel now. Where are you?" I quickly responded with our location, and moments later, Sam's unmarked police car pulled into the employee lot. Relief washed over me as we rushed toward it. "Get in," Sam said, his expression grim. "We need to talk." Once safely inside with Ethan buckled in the back seat, I started to explain. But Sam held up a hand. "First, look at this." He handed me an evidence bag containing white powder. This was taken from a sample we found at another location connected to Andrew Pierce. "It's baking powder, Joanne. Not drugs. What? But I saw. There's a major sting operation happening tonight, Sam explained. We've been tracking Andrew Pierce's organization for months. He's been using his investment firm and his fiancée's event planning business to launder money for a drug cartel. Tonight was supposed to be a major exchange disguised as wedding gifts. But the bag under our table, probably a decoy, Sam said. The real exchange must be happening somewhere else in the hotel. But here's the thing. The DEA intercepted the actual drugs days ago. What's being sold tonight is fake. We're letting the transaction happen to catch everyone involved. So the white powder I saw, worthless. But the money is very real. Someone's about to pay millions for baking powder, and we're going to arrest them all when they do. He paused, studying my face. What I don't understand is why they involved you and Ethan. That's when Ethan spoke up from the back seat. The hotel manager changed it. Sam and I both turned to look at him. Changed what, buddy? I asked. The stuff in the bag, Ethan said. I saw him. When I went to look at the cake, he took out the packets and put different ones in. He didn't see me because I was hiding. Sam and I exchanged looks. The hotel manager is involved? Sam pulled out his phone. This changes everything. The operation could be compromised. As he made an urgent call to his team, I realized with growing horror what had nearly happened. We had been set up as unwitting mules or scapegoats. If we had left with that bag, we would have been stopped by Andrew's men, or worse, by legitimate law enforcement, who would have found us in possession of what they believed were real drugs. Someone had turned the tables in this dangerous game, and we had nearly been sacrificed as pawns. Sam insisted we stay in his car while he coordinated with his team. The safest place for you right now is away from that hotel, he said firmly. We've got plainclothes officers inside, and they'll handle it. But as we watched from the safety of the parking lot, my phone lit up with Kelly's name. Against Sam's advice, I answered. Where the hell are you? She demanded, her voice shaking. Everything's falling apart, and Andrew says it's somehow your fault. Kelly, listen to me, I said urgently. Andrew is involved in something dangerous. Money laundering, at least. Maybe worse. You need to distance yourself from him right now. You've always been jealous of me, she hissed. Always trying to ruin anything good in my life. Andrew warned me you might try something tonight. He said you've always resented my success. Kelly, I'm not. Save it. Ryan can't find that bag, and Andrew is furious. He says if it's not returned, there will be serious consequences. For all of us. My blood ran cold. Are you threatening me and my son? I'm trying to protect you, you idiot. These people don't mess around. Just bring back whatever you took, and maybe this can be fixed. In the background, I heard a male voice growing louder, then Kelly's frightened response. She's on the phone now. I'm trying. There was a scuffling sound, then Andrew's voice came on the line. Joanne, this is very simple. Return what doesn't belong to you, and everyone goes home happy tonight. Keep playing games, and well, people have disappeared for less. His voice was chillingly calm, the facade of the charming groom completely gone. I don't have anything of yours, Andrew. Then why did you sneak out the back with your son? Ryan saw you on the security feed. I glanced at Sam, who was listening intently while sending rapid texts. He mouthed keep him talking at me. Ethan wasn't feeling well. I was taking him for some air. You have 5 minutes to bring it back, or I can't be responsible for what happens next. The threat in Andrew's voice was unmistakable. Is Kelly safe? I asked. My concern for my sister overriding our years of distance. There was a pause. That depends entirely on you. The call ended. I turned to Sam, panic rising. They have Kelly. They think we took something, and they're threatening her. Sam's expression was grim. We need to move now. Our operation is blown if the hotel manager is involved, he may have warned them. He made another call, speaking in rapid police codes. What about Kelly? I insisted. We'll get her out, Sam promised. But I need you and Ethan to stay here with Officer Jenkins. He nodded toward a uniformed officer approaching our car. No, I said firmly. They're expecting me to return. If I don't show up, Kelly could be hurt. I need to go back in. Absolutely not, Sam argued. "It's too dangerous." "They won't hurt me in a room full of witnesses," I reasoned. "And I can wear a wire. This might be your best chance to catch them all." After heated debate and rapid consultation with his superiors, a plan was formed. I would return to the reception wearing a tiny transmitter, claiming I had moved the bag for safekeeping when I noticed suspicious activity. Officer Jenkins would pose as a taxi driver who had brought us back after Ethan started feeling better. "What about Ethan?" I asked, not wanting to bring him back into danger. "I can be brave, Mom," Ethan insisted. "I want to help Aunt Kelly." In the end, we compromised. Ethan would return with me, but would immediately be taken to a secure room with a female officer posing as a hotel childcare worker, offering a special movie night for kids tired of the reception. 20 minutes later, we walked back through the main hotel entrance. Ryan spotted us immediately, his relief poorly disguised as annoyance. "There you are," he said, gripping my elbow. "Andrew's been looking everywhere for you." "Ethan was feeling sick," I explained. "We needed some air." "Is the children's room still open?" "He's exhausted." Ryan hesitated, then nodded to one of Andrew's other men, who came over to escort Ethan. My heart pounded as I watched them walk away, but I knew the undercover officer was waiting to intercept them. "Now," Ryan said, his voice low. "Where is it?" "Somewhere safe," I replied. "I want to talk to Kelly first." He led me to a small conference room off the main ballroom. Inside, Kelly sat rigidly in a chair, Andrew standing behind her with his hands on her shoulders in what looked like affection but was clearly restraint. Two other men I recognized from the reception stood by the door. "Joanne," Andrew greeted me, his perfect smile now threatening rather than charming. "Glad you could join us. Kelly's been worried about you." My sister's mascara had run, her eyes red from crying. "Why are you doing this?" she whispered. "Just give them what they want, and let's all go home." "Kelly, did you know?" I asked directly. "About Andrew's real business?" She looked away, and her silence was answer enough. "She knew enough," Andrew said dismissively, "that her charming fiancé had business interests beyond what appeared on his tax returns, that her event planning company was useful for more than just arranging flowers." "Money laundering," I said plainly. Andrew's eyebrows rose. Well informed for a single mom with an entry-level accounting job. "Now, where is my property?" "First, let Kelly go." Andrew laughed. "You're not in a position to negotiate, but I am curious how exactly an insignificant person like you ended up in the middle of a very significant transaction." "Maybe I'm not as insignificant as you thought," I replied, playing for time as I knew Sam and his team were listening and preparing to move in. "Maybe you shouldn't have seated the sister of the bride at the one table in your elaborate money laundering operation." Andrew's smile tightened. "An unfortunate oversight in the seating chart. One that's about to be corrected." "By what? Making me and my 5-year-old son disappear? At your wedding? With hundreds of witnesses?" "Accidents happen," Ryan said coldly. "Even at beautiful weddings. Now, for the last time, where's the bag?" "I moved it," I admitted. When I realized what was happening, "It's hidden in the gift pile." Andrew nodded to Ryan, who left immediately to check. "You know," Andrew said conversationally, "I never understood why Kelly was so dismissive of you. You're clearly smarter than she gave you credit for. Perhaps you could have been an asset rather than a liability." "I'm not interested in criminal enterprises, thanks." "No?" he mocked. "Just in being the family disappointment? The cautionary tale parents warn their daughters about?" Before I could respond, Ryan burst back into the room. "It's gone," he said urgently, "and the contents have been replaced." Andrew's composure cracked. "What? It's full of napkins now." Someone switched it. Andrew's face contorted with rage. He pulled Kelly up by her arm. "What did you do?" "Nothing," she gasped. "I swear." He turned to me, advancing slowly. "This was your plan all along, wasn't it? Working with someone inside? Who was it? The caterer you were talking to?" I backed away, suddenly afraid my wire would be discovered. "I don't know what you're talking about. I just moved it, that's all." From outside, we heard raised voices and commotion. Andrew grabbed my arm painfully. "What's happening out there?" The door burst open, and one of Andrew's men rushed in. "We've got a problem. Cops everywhere, not just hotel security. They're checking everyone, and Alvarez just got arrested trying to leave." Andrew's face went pale. He pulled a gun from inside his jacket, pointing it first at me, then at Kelly. "This is your doing," he snarled. The moment the gun appeared, I knew Sam would be moving in. I needed to buy seconds, not minutes. "Andrew, think about what you're doing," I said, raising my hands. "This room is surrounded. There's no way out." Kelly suddenly found her courage. "Put the gun down, Andrew. It's over." "Shut up," he shouted, his perfect facade completely shattered. "You think I can't disappear? I've been preparing for this possibility for years." Ryan was already on his phone, presumably calling for extraction or backup. "2 minutes," he said to Andrew. "Service elevator to the roof. Helicopter standing by." It was now or never. As Andrew turned slightly to acknowledge Ryan, I lunged forward, pushing Kelly out of his grasp. She stumbled into the conference table as I tackled Andrew, aiming for the hand holding the gun. We crashed to the floor, the gun skittering away. Andrew was stronger, but I was fighting for my son's safety, for Kelly, for every time I'd been underestimated and dismissed. I managed to land a solid blow to his throat, making him choke and gasp. Ryan moved to help Andrew, but Kelly, finally choosing a side, swung a heavy crystal award from the table, catching him squarely in the back of the head. He crumpled to the floor as the door burst open, and Sam led a team of officers into the room. "Police, freeze!" Andrew was still struggling beneath me, his hands around my throat. I brought my knee up hard, connecting with his groin. His grip loosened enough for me to roll away as officers swarmed him. In seconds, Andrew, Ryan, and the other men were in handcuffs. I sat on the floor, gasping for breath, as Kelly sank down beside me, her perfect wedding gown splayed around us like a deflated dream. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I suspected, but I didn't want to know. It was easier to believe the lie." I reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. "I know something about that." As officers led Andrew past us, he fixed me with a look of pure hatred. "You have no idea what you've done. This isn't over." Sam helped me to my feet. "Actually, it is over. We've got the hotel manager in custody too, and we've seized evidence that will put Pierce away for decades, including his detailed records of using your event planning business, Kelly." Kelly's face crumpled. "Am I going to be arrested too?" "That depends on your cooperation," Sam said honestly. "But right now, we need to process everyone and take statements." I had only one concern. "Where's Ethan?" "Safe," Sam assured me. The officer with him reported in. "He's watching Toy Story and eating ice cream, completely unaware of what just happened." As we were led from the room, past shocked wedding guests, and through a gauntlet of police officers, I caught sight of my parents. They stood frozen in disbelief as their perfect son-in-law was escorted out in handcuffs, their golden daughter following in her ruined wedding gown, and their disappointment of a daughter somehow at the center of it all. For once in my life, I had no interest in their approval or understanding. I had one focus: get to my son, take him home, and hold him close until this nightmare faded into memory. 6 months after what the local news dubbed the wedding day takedown, life had found a new rhythm. Andrew and his associates were awaiting trial on multiple federal charges, including money laundering, drug trafficking, and conspiracy. The evidence against them was overwhelming, thanks in part to the detailed financial records seized from Andrew's various properties. Kelly had avoided charges by cooperating fully with investigators. She lost her event planning business, but avoided prison, a fact that she acknowledged daily was due more to privilege than justice. She had moved into a modest apartment and was working at a local florist while attending therapy twice weekly. My parents had undergone the most surprising transformation. The shock of discovering their perfect son-in-law was a criminal mastermind who had endangered their daughters, and grandson had forced them to re-examine their priorities and prejudices. "We were wrong, Joanne," my father had said during a difficult family dinner 3 weeks after the wedding, "about so many things." "We put appearances above substance," my mother admitted, reaching across the table to touch my hand. "And in doing so, We missed seeing the strength and character you've shown in raising Ethan. Their words couldn't erase years of judgment, but they opened a door to healing that I had long ago assumed was permanently closed. As for me, the experience had awakened something I hadn't known. Existed a talent for security analysis. Sam had encouraged me to apply to a private security consulting firm that specialized in identifying potential criminal activity in legitimate businesses. You saw what everyone else missed, he pointed out. You noticed patterns, behaviors, inconsistencies. That's not luck, that's skill. To my surprise, I was hired, despite my limited resume. We can teach the technical aspects, my new boss had explained. But the instinct you displayed, that's innate. My first major project was developing training materials for event venues on recognizing signs of money laundering and other criminal activities disguised as legitimate functions. The irony wasn't lost on me using what I had learned at my sister's wedding to protect others from similar schemes. Ethan had bounced back with the resilience of childhood. He remembered the events as an exciting adventure where his mom was a hero who had rescued Aunt Kelly from a bad man. The child psychologist we visited assured me that with continued stability and open communication, he would integrate the experience in a healthy way. Kelly and I were rebuilding our relationship one careful conversation at a time. Years of competition and resentment couldn't be erased overnight, but shared trauma had created a foundation of understanding that hadn't existed before. I always envied you, Kelly confessed, during one of our weekly coffee meetings. Your certainty about what mattered to you. Your willingness to choose Ethan over everything else, including our parents' approval. And I envied your apparent perfection, I admitted. How everything seemed to come so easily to you. Nothing was easy, she said quietly. I just became an expert at pretending. We had both been performing different versions of the same act, living the roles assigned to us rather than choosing our own paths. It had taken a criminal conspiracy and a near tragedy to break those patterns. 1 year after the wedding that never quite happened, we gathered at my apartment to celebrate Ethan's 6th birthday. My parents brought thoughtfully chosen gifts rather than expensive status symbols. Sam came with his wife and daughter, now regular figures in our expanding circle. Even Diane from the catering staff had become a friend, joining us with her son who was close to Ethan's age. As I carried the homemade birthday cake to the table, I caught Ethan watching me with a particular expression, a mixture of pride and love, that still caught me off guard sometimes. "What are you thinking, buddy?" I asked as I set down the cake. "I was remembering how you saved Aunt Kelly," he said simply. "You weren't scared of the bad guys at all." I smiled, not bothering to correct his heroic version of events, which had grown more elaborate with each telling. I was definitely scared. But sometimes we have to be brave, even when we're scared. Kelly squeezed my shoulder as she passed. Some good life advice there. She leaned down to Ethan's level. "Your mom is the bravest person I know. And not just because of what happened at my wedding. Because she's a superhero detective now?" Ethan asked excitedly, referring to my new job, which he had mythologized considerably. "Because she's always been true to herself and to you," Kelly corrected gently. "That takes a different kind of courage." Later, as the party wound down and guests began to leave, my mother helped me wash dishes while my father and Ethan built a Lego set in the living room. "I keep thinking about how differently things could have turned out," my mother said, handing me a plate to dry. "If Ethan hadn't noticed that bag, if you hadn't trusted his concerns, or if you hadn't taught me to be so stubborn," I added with a small smile. She laughed softly. "I suppose some of those traits we thought were flaws served you well in the end." "I think that's true for all of us," I replied. Kelly's attention to detail, Dad's protective instincts, your social awareness, we just needed to use them for the right reasons. My mother paused, looking at me with new eyes. "When did you get so wise?" "Around the time I became a mom," I answered honestly. "When I realized I had to be the person Ethan deserved, not the person everyone expected me to be." The simple truth was that our greatest strength often emerges from what others perceive as our greatest weakness. My impulsive decision to become a mother at 19 had been viewed as my life's defining mistake. Yet it had given me Ethan, and with him, a clarity of purpose that had ultimately saved us both. As the evening ended, and I tucked an exhausted Ethan into bed. He asked me a question that caught me by surprise. "Mom, are you happy that all that scary stuff happened at Aunt Kelly's wedding?" I considered how to answer truthfully. "I'm not happy it happened," I said finally. "But I am grateful for what came after. Sometimes the hardest moments lead to the best changes." He nodded, accepting this with the wisdom children sometimes possess. Like how Grandma and Grandpa are nicer now, and how Aunt Kelly comes over all the time. Exactly like that. "And you got a cool job where you catch bad guys." I smiled. "Well, mostly I help other people learn how to spot potential bad guys. But yes, that too." He yawned, his eyes drifting closed. "I'm glad I told you to look under the table." "Me too, buddy," I whispered, kissing his forehead. That was the bravest, smartest thing anyone did that day. As I turned out his light and left his room, I reflected on how a single moment of attention and trust, a mother taking seriously what her child was trying to tell her, had cascaded into the unraveling of an entire criminal enterprise. It was a reminder that our most important decisions are often the small ones, the seemingly insignificant choices, to listen, to observe, to question what doesn't seem right. The greatest dangers often hide in plain sight, disguised as normal, even celebrated events. And our greatest allies might be those we least expect, including a 5-year-old boy with sharp eyes and the courage to speak up when something seems wrong. Have you ever had a moment when trusting your instincts or listening to someone else's concerns changed everything? When have you noticed something that others missed, or spoken up when something didn't feel right? Share your stories in the comments below. Your experience might help someone else recognize and respond to warning signs in their own lives. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with others who might need a reminder that sometimes, looking beneath the surface can make all the difference. Thank you for listening to my journey, and may you always trust both your own instincts and the important observations of those around you, no matter how small their voices might seem.